The Iliana Expressway goes east and west. It's about trucks. It's not about an airport. We in Indiana began the initiative for the Iliana because of the truck traffic on 8094 and the need to move that does not stop here south. There's been comments that truckers, just ask the truckers, they'll never use it. So I did. We've been talking to them for years. Big trucking companies like big airlines, we measure delay minutes in dollars. We know exactly what a delay minute costs. And we will pay to not incur delay minutes. We have to pay for the labor, we have to pay for the fuel, we have to pay for the utilization of the vehicle while it's idling. Let me read you a letter from the Indiana Motor Transport Association. Dear Chairman Soliday, as president of the Indiana Motor Truck Association, I would like to express the continued support of our association has had for the Iliana Expressway. The IMTA has been on board from the start and continues to work for a safe and efficient highway infrastructure within Indiana and beyond. Thank you for your ongoing work with this effort. Please let me know if there is anything we can do to help facilitate the development of this proposal. Let me say just something as someone who spent 40 years of his life in the airline industry, the last years as a senior officer. The airports in this country, and I'd like somebody to name a major airport that has been built in the last 20 years. The concrete is paid for by the trust fund, which has since been, the revenues have been diverted for operating expense. So I see no, if the President of the United States, Secretary of Transportation were going to move forward with the Piatone Airport, that move would have been made. There are folks who would like to have it happen. But second of all, and more importantly, the terminals are paid for by airlines. I don't know of any major carrier that is thinking about building a terminal in Piatone, Illinois. Southwest, major commuter carrier, is in Midway and well established. The Iliana Expressway does not add one thing to the benefit of a Piatone airport. It goes east and west and diverts heavy truck traffic that is not stopping in our state. That's the reason. Make it safer, make it more efficient, reduce delay minutes, net jobs. The difference between the state's plan and what NERC has, NERC's 2040 is a vision. It says that North County will grow by 1.3%. For the last 20 years, North County has been declining by 1.7%. That's a delta of 3%. That's almost what the major suburbs in the most growing communities are growing at. How are we going to grow North County by 1.3%? I want to see that happen. I want to see us rebuild the middle class. I want to see us rebuild commercial activity, retail in North County. But how are we going to do it when the prognosis is that when 8094 slows down, the trucking community diverts to our major arterials where we can do business? There's no side agendas here, except that for almost 50 years, we have talked about the need to relieve 8094 of those vehicles that are going westbound. The major difficulty is those trucks, the major relief to the difficulty is those trucks that are connecting to I-80 and going westbound or coming westbound and south or eastbound and carrying goods from the East Coast. We are the crossroads of America. We have a giant lake. Now we can either take advantage of that or be victimized by it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I hear a talk about congestion, economic development, safety. All those issues are very important. But I think I think the priority here should be congestion on local roads, roads that our children have to cross. And that would have been to build Pine Avenue. And that was the argument of the people then, the people who wanted to rebuild Pine, and NDOT had no sympathy for them. They don't care about the local roads that have very heavy trucks on them, the air quality that has diminished, has diminished because of big heavy trucks crossing our local. I don't only represent the 5th District of Lake County and Lake County residents as a whole, but I represent the unincorporated citizens, and they do not want this road. So their voice today will be my vote. But really, you talk about economic development and safety, and really, you should have done that. You should have considered us in building the bridge. Thank you.
I agree with her. Pine Avenue should have been rebuilt. I agree with that. But I'm going to tell you a story that Mayor McDermott and I were on our way to Portage to a legislative committee meeting. And we were on the Gorman Expressway. Both of us arrived 20 minutes late due to the fact that we were only traveling 10 to 15 miles an hour. There is congestion on the Gorman. And if we can divert that, we may reduce the pollutants that are put out there in that area. Because with all of us at almost a standstill, I think we were polluting that area. I talked to my council member, John Foreman, last night, and he indicated to me what major community does not have bypasses. Indianapolis, Cincinnati, and Fort Wayne, which he mentioned to me. He said he sees no reason why we can't have a bypass here in Northwest Indiana.
Mr. Chairman.
Let's put a word real quick here. I know that we're talking air quality right now. We haven't even dived into the fact that the city did get a 2040 plan in the next section here. So let's maybe move one thing forward, because I know that everyone has the comments, and everyone's comments here are valuable to the plan itself. So everything's going to be probably said again, or maybe expanded upon. But do we want to at least move forward? We do have a motion, we do have a second.
I'm going to call the question.
Oh, we called the question. Okay, let's get through this first one first, and then when the actual 65 Ileana project is on the table, I'm sure we'll have some more conversation. So at this point, we have called for the question. We have a motion to approve the air quality plan as presented. An aye vote will be in favor of the air quality plan as submitted. A no vote would be for not approving it. So I call upon the commissioners all in favor.
I move for way to vote.
Second.
We have a way to vote. And we have a second.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, we have a way to vote.
could we ask the legal representative if we could do a way to vote using the 2010 numbers instead of the 14-year-old data? We know what the census numbers are. They were verified by the U.S. Census Bureau. It makes no sense to me as Commissioner of Emergency to use old data knowingly.
I will defer to Mr. Hollenbach to give some legal opinion on that answer.
As Representative Salda indicated, our enabling statute contains the procedures with a significant degree of specificity as to how we are to proceed in performing our business. The weighted vote provisions of our enabling statute provide that when a weighted vote is asked for, it shall be done proportionally based upon the 2010 census data. I'm sorry, 2000, thank you. The 2000 data. We looked at that very closely. We sought and we made an effort to find a basis to go to 2010. Unfortunately, we were unable to find a basis to do that, and it is my legal opinion that we need to follow our enabling statute utilizing the 2000 census data if this is to be a valid vote of this commission.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
is it troubling to anybody in this group besides myself that we're intentionally using 14-year-old data? I mean, this possibly opens us up to litigation down the road because we're knowingly using 14-year-old data.
We received a legal interpretation of statute. I mean, I agree
None
with
of
you.
you know
that.
that on the record. Make a huge mistake.
We know-
Mr. Chairman, I believe we have to follow the laws as is promulgated. I think our attorney comments are there.
I agree with that. And again, your vote here, a yes vote would be for the air quality for determination. In favor of that, no vote obviously would be against. Would all into nay vote as well. So again,
And
that's
maybe by way of clarity, Mr. Chairman, under the weighting voting system, there has to be more than 50% in favor. So someone who's absent or someone who abstains is effectively voting no.
you have your instructions. And,
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. Isn't there a motion on the floor to separate?
no, that was denied. Okay, we will begin. Alan, you call the roll then? Or Mary, you call the roll? Mary, call the roll.
Okay. Representative Short,
Due to it barely complying with the air conformity and not improving air quality, I vote no.
Burns Harbor,
No.
Cedar Lake,
Yes.
Chesterton,
Yes.
Crown Point,
Yes.
New Acres, Dyer,
Yes.
East Chicago,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Griffith,
Yes.
Hammond,
No.
Hebron,
Yes.
Highland,
Yes.
Hobart,
Yes.
Kingsbury, Couch,
The Gary Airport's most attractive feature, our location less than 30 miles from Chicago. Does this mean that I am ignoring the trucks that will be diverted from 8094? No. It means that there will still be in excess of 200,000 cars per day and trucks that travel through the city of Gary and patronize our existing and future businesses along that corridor. Does this mean that Gary residents will be the primary beneficiaries of the Illiana? No, but it means that Gary residents will be the short and long-term beneficiaries of a stronger region. For a long time, many of us have rejected regionalism. Gary residents are skeptical when people attempt to exert undue influence over our assets, the airport, the lakefront, and other transportation assets. At the same time, there are those who want to ensure that residents are less mobile, hence the absence of an effective regional bus system or other public transportation system. Finally, there are those who have moved away from the urban core to isolate themselves and want others to embrace this separatism. Researchers have shown, and cities like Youngstown and Akron, Ohio, have proven the fact that a rebounding city's willingness
we have the ability to enjoy cross traffic from Chicago and Chicago, people coming from Chicago to our community to shop in our stores and to enjoy our restaurants. And creating a traffic system that makes that more pliable and more easy would be beneficial to our residents. Also, getting our residents to Chicago to work is economically feasible as well, because most residents working in Chicago coming back home and spending their money here is good for our community. So it's important that this happens, and also our public services are stressed by maintaining services on 90 things like that. And I appreciate you're all earlier. I'd like to share the Ewan family here in Portage. The Ewan family are 7th generation farmers in the community, and they were one of the few families who had the vision to support I-94 when it came through. The NERC building sits where the Ewans farmed. Also, they farmed in Lake Station, Black Oak, and other communities all across the region. They had the vision to see the future while many other people were opposed. I've seen many letters come from many different people from different communities south of here, and it's interesting now to see that Connie, Tina, Alicia, all now work in Chicago and are all Ewans. Their sons-in-laws work in Chicago and come from here to there. That would have never been possible without the forwardness and vision of their great-grandparents. Also, Greg Ewan is a operating engineer and will probably be working on this Illiana Expressway in the future, all because of vision and people being able to see past today. Karen said it, Mayor Freeman Wilson said it so well. To be able to look into the future is difficult sometimes. People are more interested in what's happening now than the future. We were elected as leaders and commissioners to think about the future. And alleviation of traffic on 94 is paramount to the residents of Portage.
Mr. Chairman.
You know, like Honorable Mayor Gary, we've got everybody's got a lot of mail, phone calls from a lot of different people, especially a lot of people from the southern parts of the counties. I don't know if Rich's mail, Mr. Mazinski's mail, our trucks. And I would love to have a highway that doesn't get them away from us, get them away from our local roads so that they can go where they want to. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. Since this proposed highway is running through all three of the townships around Lowell, it impacts a lot of people. There's somewhere around 20,000 people. So I represent not only the town of Lowell, but all those people as well. And what I'm hearing here is benefits to everybody else. Benefits to everybody else. But obviously what concerns me is the impacts to my community. Mr. Alden was speaking about safety. We're talking about running thousands of semis down this tollway. So what makes the safety on this toll road any better than yours? The accidents are going to happen. The accidents are going to happen on 65. The increased traffic on 65 is going to cause more accidents. So I agree with you, safety is a concern, but you're adding more concern to my community, to my people. And in one particular impact, direct impact, is the fact that we're a rural community. We operate on volunteer fire departments and one ambulance service that covers all three of these townships. And this 12 miles of superhighway is going to be through all three of those townships. So we provide those services. We're struggling, probably just like many of you. The ambulance service only has 2 ALS units.
4 paramedics 24/7. We're already seeing an increase in responses out to I-65 because of the increase in traffic. So how is this going to affect us? It could very well mean that when my residents need a fire truck or an ambulance, they could be up on this toll road. How do I tell my constituents or my residents in the townships that that's how we're dealing with the safety? We've talked with the Ileana Planning Group. They've been vigilant. They've talked with us. They've come down and they've discussed it with our fire EMS. And they're not sure how they can help or if they can help right now. So maybe in the future there's something that can be done. It's kind of interesting. Just today in the Hammond Times, Mark Chase had a very good article about titled "Controversial Ileana Unifies Strange Bedfellows." Something has happened in Lake County on this one subject. Is we have politicians and local officials that are working across the aisles to do what they believe is right. We have Mayor McDermott that's standing up against Local 150. That is incredible. But that means he must believe he's correct. We've got the county council and the county commissioners standing together, both sides of the political fence, saying that they don't want this. They represent all of Lake County. You've got to think about this before you make a decision. Yeah, you're impacting me. I can tell you, I might, maybe you think that's a little selfish that I don't want to impose or I don't want my people to suffer for the benefit of you, but I have a problem with that. I don't know how to go back and tell my people that this is going to be good for them. Mr. Soliday said that just to get the trucks through there. And the Ileana Planning Group is telling me that the economic development will take care of all your needs. Well, the economic development's not going to happen the day the bulldozers come in and start work. But I'll be providing services. I'll be taking care of those construction workers. I don't know whether it's going to happen at all. It's not going to happen soon enough, and I don't know if it's going to happen at all. So the benefit appears to be to the other region, the rest of the region, and not us. So if you can live with that, I guess you can vote to support it. I can.
Dave?
Go ahead.
I don't know if I need a mic or. Our supporting the town of Cedar Lake started by when he was our town council president, Greg Warnoff. Greg Warnoff worked very hard to see that the Ileana move forward. And I gave our town council 7 maps and told them to select the route that they wanted it to go through anonymously. They didn't have to put their name on it. 5 of the members chose the exact route that is presented today, and 2 of them selected a route north of the town of Cedar Lake. I just like really like that to everybody. I've said that before, and I'm saying it again.
I first of all want to appreciate the comments by Mayor Gary, and I think what you read in those comments is that we are all elected to serve our communities, and so we are by nature parochial, and it's important that we understand and represent our interests as individual communities. But we are a regional body, and there are many problems that can only be solved by acting regionally. And we must solve this by acting regionally as this body. And so I think while it's certainly a very robust project, big project, it really boils down to simple issue. We have a problem, and the problem is loss of trust on very congested roads. That problem is not only not going away, that problem is going to get worse with every passing day. And so the question is, will this body has today the ability to solve that issue for the benefit of our children and grandchildren? Will we act to solve that problem for their benefit, or will we simply punt the ball again? So I would encourage my commissioners to support this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to pave the way for the future.
Mr. Chair. I just want to reiterate once again that it appears that, and it's quite evident from some of the comments of the other members, that Northwest Indiana is becoming the trucking hub, the trucking industry for the entire country. And you have new trucking companies that are appearing almost every year, especially up in the north part of Lake County. And those trucking companies and those truckers, they spend a lot of money. They increase the flow of money up in the northern part of the county. Those truckers come in and spend millions of dollars up there. And they are also increasing the employment up there. Some of the companies are advertising for employees, and the need is so dire now that they're willing to pay bonuses up front for you to come and apply to drive the trucks up there. If a trucker that doesn't even have a license, they will pay approximately $2,650 for you to come and fill out an application, and then they will train you to drive the truck. And so we're becoming a transportation hub for truckers, and truckers spend an awful lot of money. They not only spend money in the city area in the truck stops. They spend, truckers are hunters and sportsmen, and a lot of them spend a lot of time at Cabela's in Hammond, off of I-94. And so it's imperative also for us to increase the amount of revenue or money that is being recycled through our communities. And it's also important for us to increase the tax bases in our communities. And as these new companies, trucking companies appear, they substantially enhance the tax base of the local community. One of the primary concerns of government now is the scarcity of revenue to support the government. You can only increase that revenue by increasing the assessed value in the city. And one of the ways to increase the assessed value are these large companies that are coming in, these large private companies that are locating up here in the northern part of the county. And they are enhancing or increasing the assessed value of the city and expanding the tax base and expanding the employment opportunities up there and spending an awful lot of money up in the area. So that's a primary concern or consideration it seems counterproductive to redirect the traffic away. The state recently spent billions and billions of dollars enlarging I-94, adding new lanes, making the exits larger. And so if that was your intention, then there was no reason to expend that money up. If you were intending to create this Ileana Expressway and divert the traffic away from I-94, I don't understand the rationale for spending millions and billions and billions of taxpayers' dollars to enhance the I-94. And I-94 handles the traffic pretty well at this point. Also in reference to Peatone, there is only a 10% probability of Peatone being built, but that's the current probability. That's not the probability after the Ileana Expressway is in place. One of the largest concerns and outlays for Peatone was whether there would be a thoroughfare for the clients that use the airport and the trucks and other traffic that would use proposing Peatone Airport, how they would get back to I-55 and I-67. Well, they will have this lateral Peatone Expressway as their condition. So I am pretty well assured that after the Ileana has been constructed and completed, that the probability of the construction of Peatone Airport will increase tremendously. Thank you.
Yeah, a point I'd like to make is that, that a number of years ago, we had a similar project, the expansion of the South Shore to Lowell and West Lake border on the developer. So our Congressman Wisloski was guessed it was going to give $1 billion, similar project, and the federal government was owning up 700,000 to 800,000. And so the amount that the taxpayers were going to have to, a local match, was approximately what our local taxpayers are looking at paying for this Ileana. The process was different though, in that that was immediately put on a referendum that the people that were going to pay the tax got a say in whether they wanted to be taxed for that, which would have had similar results. It would have gotten cars, it would have reduced the congestion on these expressways, it would have sped up the commute, but the voters had a chance to say whether they were for it or against it. And I guess what I'm putting out there is that I would hope that the voters would have some say in whether the state taxpayers get a choice as to whether they're going to fund this or not.
Let me be brief. There is still, let me go back to the 2040 plan, which calls for growth in North County, which is a vision, no data to support it. Grow have a growth rate of 1.3%. You do what you've always done, you get what you always got. We need to do some things differently. Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson, it is a pleasure to work with her because she has a vision for what can be. So do other mayors in the north area. And the bottom line is that the trucks we're talking about diverting are not stopping. Let me repeat that. They are not stopping. We'd like to get them to the south so those businesses and entities that locate in Gary, Hammond, East Chicago that we're courting every day can get their goods and service to market from North County and not be impeded by that 53% of the traffic that isn't stopping for so much as a Snickers bar. That's the point. That's the purpose. I would like to see one study that shows that the Peatone Airport proposed is helped in any way. An econometric model that shows it is helped in any way by an east-west tollway. I can give you hours of reasons why that is illogical. Gary Airport, I began my career with a charter business at Gary Airport. That airport is an excellent opportunity for a reliever airport. 30 minutes from downtown. I lived in Barrington, Illinois. It took me 2 hours to make my board appointments at the Adler Planetarium. From Gary, I'm at it in 30 minutes. I can go on and on about the competitiveness of the Gary Airport versus some proposal for Peatone. It becomes almost tiresome to keep hearing that this highway is somehow going to make Peatone Airport viable. We have invested many, many dollars through the RDA and other sources in the Gary Airport. I don't see us as a state, I don't see the RDA in any way reducing that investment because it is the most viable, the most opportunity, the runways are there, and it has very quick access to the city. This does not provide access to the city. It helps us, our residents, get to the city. I've seen the numbers. I want to see the numbers that say 8094 is just fine now, and it's going to be just fine in the future. Show me something empirical beyond an opining.
Chairman. I too, Mr. Chairman, received a lot of letters, emails, telephone calls, both in support and opposing the Leanna Expressway project. A lot of those comments have come from very sincere people who are very concerned about the future. And I think that the only way to answer those questions is to include the project and the comprehensive plan so those very sincere people can get the answers that they deserve. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll move the previous question.
Quick hold that. Obviously, friends and neighbors to the south, Crown Point below, we look at this project very seriously. We hear about the Pine Avenue situation. I stand with my neighbors to the north, and I felt that NDOT should have helped tremendously to improve Pine Avenue. And I think I speak that for everyone that sits at this table. We all agree that should have took place. But let's not look at that to punish NDOT for a project that is good for the region solely because of that. This morning I read a newspaper where Governor Pence wants to continue to push taxes, relief taxes for businesses, and push it back on the wage earners, simply saying we'll just raise the local option income tax. If we don't create jobs that are fading from the PP area, other areas, how do we collect dollars to protect our schools, public safety, the safety of these roads, the things that are vital to the amenities of our communities to prosper, increase home ownership, if we don't have those jobs in place? This is a blue-collar community, region. And I see a lot of them standing right here that live everywhere in this region, that rely on jobs that create opportunities for their family and the next generation. We talk about we're just building economic development for Illinois. I think Indiana's done a great job of bringing Illinois to Indiana because of our tax base. If that's going to change tomorrow, I see that absolutely not happening. I've received several letters, several calls, talked to several people from the area that's affected by this, and we are elected to make tough decisions, sometimes again not popular. It's for the greater good. I look back in the 50s and 60s when I-65 was a thought process, and I imagine the thought process and the discussions just like it is today. In Crown Point, I-65 is not a hindrance. It is an amenity. My neighbors to the east, in Woodfield, we see the direct benefit of the interchange at 190. And it's how our communities have an opportunity to grow with home ownership because of the proximity to Chicago and the ability to get there easier, safely. Maryville sees, we had a conversation about that interchange being built, how it was going to affect Route 30, 65, and the commerce there because we're taking away the traffic flow. Mr. Walter would agree the fact that the commerce in that location is much better, more profitable, because people doing business in an area can get there more frequently and safely because the people who are just driving through are no longer the case because they have the interchange at 190. Directly takes them to the places they need to go. We need to look at this collectively as a region. That's why we're elected here to be here. We talked about leaving your community hat at the door and collectively coming together what's best for the communities. It's a tough decision, but we're here today to make that decision. And I respect everybody's decision, yes or no, if it's truly on the merits of the project only, and not because we're trying to pay punishment for things that didn't go our way in the past. So those are just my takes.
No one at this point is asking for it.
Everybody ready to vote? We'll do it first.
Well, I move for a weighted vote.
Second.
We have a waiting vote, we have a second. Okay. Waiting vote. Harry, if you do the honors once again.
It's tough.
Mount Beverly Shores.
No.
Burns Harbor.
Yes.
Cedar Lake.
Yes.
Chesterton.
Yes.
Crown Point.
Yes.
Dune Acres. Dyer.
Yes.
East Chicago.
Yes.
Gary.
Yes.
Griffith.
Yes.
Hammond.
No.
Hebron.
Yes.
Highland.
Yes.
Hobart.
Yes.
Kingsbury. Kingsford Heights.
Yes.
Couts. LaCrosse. Lake County Commission.
No.
Lake County Council.
No.
Lake Station.
Yes.
LaPorte.
Yes.
LaPorte County Commission.
Yes.
LaPorte County Council.
Yes.
Long Beach.
Abstain.
Lowell.
No.
Maryville.
Yes.
Michiana Shores. Michigan City.
Yes.
Munster.
Yes.
New Chicago.
Yes.
Ogden Dunes. Hines. Portage.
Yes.
Porter. Porter County Commission.
Yes.
Porter County Council.
Yes.
Porter Township.
No.
Potawatomi Park. Sherrville.
Yes.
Schneider.
Yes.
St. John. Trail Creek.
Yes.
Union Township.
No.
Valparaiso.
Yes.
Wanata.
Yes.
Westville. Whiting.
Yes.
Winfield.
No.
Action on resolution 1327, passes 76.22%, 20.34.
All right, Mr. Chairman, the third and final action in front of you from the Transportation Committee is Resolution 1328. And that is on page 56 to 58. I want to draw your attention to that resolution, please, because in the package you were handed this morning, there's a typo in there. Right before the final paragraph of the now therefore, there should be an additional paragraph in there. That additional paragraph reads as, whereas the projected projects were submitted to NERC's congestion management process analysis and were found to be consistent. That was accidentally left out of the package, so that is an additional paragraph in this resolution. Gary Evers is going to give us a quick presentation on this resolution.
This resolution adds two projects to the TIP as indicated on page 58. The first one is listed is desk number 1172430. This is the I-65 added travel lanes project from US 30 south to US 231. Preliminary engineering is to begin as soon as possible following incorporation into the STIP. And construction is set to begin in state fiscal year 16, which corresponds with calendar year 2016 in this case. The second project is INDOT's Corridor 404 project. This is the Eliana Expressway project encompassing multiple DES numbers. I'll go very quickly through the explanation of codes there. PE is preliminary engineering. RW services are right-of-way services such as title searches, property records, contacts with property owners. Right-of-way LID is land improvements and damages. Those are actual payments to property owners for easements and real property. Construction, CN, is the actual construction activity, and CN with an RR by the side is actual payment to the railroads for encroachment upon their property. In total, the state is indicating now that they will spend approximately $41 million on these particular phases of construction, and they're utilizing federal funds for Ileana in the amount indicated there below. Changes, they may up, they may lower this amount as time progresses, and they will make those changes without, administratively, without coming back through our TIF process. And that is it. You must, it's important that you know that you cannot decouple these two projects. They must be accepted or rejected together. Thank you.
Gary.
All right, thank you, Gary. Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 13-28 with the addition of the paragraph as I read it in the paragraph.
Second. We have a second, and we have discussion.
Mr. Chairman, if this is approved, then it's a new point. If we, then in essence,
Is it all done with the review?
I'm saying, is it a new point after we pass this law, because we're looking at, $1 million, so aren't we already passing the money for the project?
The prior action only added the projects to our long-range transportation plan. This particular action here adds these projects to our short 4-year spending program. Big difference between the two. Long-term, we go out to 2040. Here within the TIP, we're only going as far as state fiscal year 2017. So there is a distinction.
Does that answer your question? Did that answer your question? Any other discussion? We do a voice, or are we doing, well, I'll tell you what, this will, we have a motion on the floor, we don't have any discussion, a second. All in favor, signify by an aye. Aye. Against?
Yes.
The ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I hope that you'll give me leave to make the following motion. That it be the sense of this commission, now that we've taken the 3 steps necessary to move forward with the Ileana plan, that we urge the negotiating authority, who would be the governor, to include in any lease construction agreement payment in lieu of taxes and/or direct reimbursement for public safety services provided by neighboring community to the toll.
I'll second that.
We have a motion on the floor, we have a second.
Could you read that again, please?
It would be my pleasure to, with the leave of the chair.
Yes.
That it would be the sense of the commission to urge the negotiating authority, who would be the governor of the current construct of the statute, to include in any lease construction agreement payment in lieu of taxes and/or direct reimbursement for public safety services provided by neighboring communities to the toll.
So we have a second, we're in discussion.
Maybe give us a little bit more background on why you...
It was my, I've listened to a lot of the comments. I was like everyone here who's expressed it. I too received and tried to read carefully all of the emails and communications I received from the people who are concerned about this moving forward. It's not that I don't love the present, I'm less. I just favor the future more. That's really what I'm doing. But I have to say that my colleague, Commissioner Early, at a 16+ meeting, made a compelling argument about his concern about the ability to sustain those services as the more than likely incorporated community that will be providing those services. And I think it's been a tenet of every official here at the local government to know that sometimes we get these added burdens and then there's no way for those to be recovered. If this were merely going to be operated by the state alone, this would not be something I would propose. But because this is going to be a combination financing and there is a for-profit element in this, it seems to me reasonable for us as a sense of the commission, which is really only our opinion. It's not necessarily binding, but I think it will be informative and important to communicate to the governors and negotiating authority to take that issue into account, which at the 16+ meeting I thought Commissioner Early compellingly presented.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on that motion?
Yes, I don't disagree with the motion at all, and many of us already have since the toll road has been privatized through lease, many of us have that same issue going on now, as it is now a financial consortium. So if we're going to make a motion like that, and the consensus of this board is to make a motion to have it discussed, we should probably add the existing circumstances as well.
Is that a proposed amendment?
Yeah, I guess the problem, I don't want to propose the amendment because we haven't had time to think about this and discuss this. It's kind of been thrown on us. I really would rather maybe at the January meeting discuss this in full and have the opportunity to think about it before I make a motion on behalf of Portage. Well, initially the thought pops in my head that it would be a good motion. We haven't had time to, all the other delineation that's taken place, I don't disagree with Mr. Early's position or Mr. Griffin's. I just think that this would be something we talk about maybe at the January meeting instead of making a motion this quickly to send out to the state.
I concur with that, because I think whether it's a toll road, whether it's, we talk about the diversion of traffic, and whether it's the Borman 65 or the Ileana, if we can look at those dollars as new opportunity and revenue, because I think each municipality who's affected by those roadways we just talked about, with the increased thought process of new traffic coming through, has a burden of public safety and all those roads.
I would ask that maybe Mr. Griffin and whoever seconded the motion entertain the thought of having this on the agenda for the January meeting and sending it to the Transportation Committee to discuss before we make a full recommendation this quickly on it.
I think with legislation being involved, there's
Legislative
that'd be a
committee as
great
well.
place to put it, because we need some guidance and also some thought process of putting I's and dotting I's across the T's.
Mr. Chairman, I would refer to the will of my colleagues on the commission. I just want to remind everybody, I don't know what kind of impact it will have. It's essentially an expression, it's a sense of the commission's communication. It's essentially our opinion, I hope. It seems reasonable, but if people feel that they would like some time to consider its import, I would be very happy to prepare this in writing, file it with the executive director and the chair, and ask that it be taken up at your January meeting. I would have no objection to that.
I was careful with the governor's appointment to Mr. Soloway and his position with this.
Let me say that probably it would be better if you gave it some time to be thought of, but this is not a new issue. When the toll road was leased, some communities on the east side said, well, now it's a private company. And they actually filed a lawsuit asking to be reimbursed. That really didn't go very far. The whole concept of traffic changes and so forth affects the whole state. I mean, every community I know of that has an interstate through it says that we have added responsibility for our first responders. So it's a complex issue. I'd be happy to hear the thoughts of the commission and be happy to discuss it with my colleagues. But I think the pros and cons need to be vetted fairly seriously before we go down there and just make a motion and then everyone else says, what about me? So that's my thoughts.
Mr. Chairman, with respect to the Mayor of Portage, I think that issues voted on today or not today should be kept separate. We have one entity that already is under contract and has established it already. We have the next entity coming in as a brand new player where language could be put into their stuff now. The two issues being put together could just jumble this into something that could roadblock the vote or anything else. I think that with respect to your Mayor of Portage, I think they should be left separate when we vote on it today or next month after some review.
Well, Mr. Chairman, just what I heard was that the Mayor of Portage was expanding his thoughts. On the one hand, he'd like time to consider whether they should reopen the existing agreements to provide for this. And he was separately then suggesting that there should be delay to consider this on its merits, whether or not that gets added or not to be a future discussion that could be met.
Yes.
So the issue is, I've suggested that I made the motion. I can't recall if it was seconded, but I'm very...
I second the motion.
Thank you very much. I'm very willing to withdraw my motion and file it in writing for the consideration of the full commission at the next meeting, that it would be taken up as a special order perhaps, if people feel that they need more time to sort of contemplate its import.
Thank you.
But I would make a compelling argument about why toll roads are toll goods, literally, in economics. But when a toll road is operated by the public entirely, an argument can be made even then there can be some reimbursement. And I'm not talking about exploiting that relationship or some act of usury or irrigation. I am talking about communities that are trying very hard to provide services for the people that they're supposed to, and then they have the moral duty to go provide those services when there's an adjoining shared asset. And if the asset's got the means then to support that extra cost, I think it's a reasonable thing to ask the governor to do that in negotiation.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Griffin and Mr. Early and Mr. Simmons, there is no city in the region that agrees with your analysis more as home of the poor. So what I'm saying is that if we could have time to think it through and discuss it, I think that would be nice. So if you would withdraw your motion, that would be much appreciated.
I will first withdraw my second based on the fact that Mr. Griffin will resubmit it in January.
I withdraw my motion. I will give notice to the commission. I'll be submitting it to your consideration in January. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, could we, I have a feeling there may be a mass exodus which would disrupt the meeting to some degree. Could we take a short recess to allow for people to exit?
5-minute recess. Yes, hold on before we.
Hang on.
If we do recess, I know we've had a lot of people in the room. We have had sign-up sheets, and the request has been made. If you could make sure you sign up if you did not do so.
So, at this time, as the chair, we will do a 5-minute recess. Adjourn at 12:05. Okay, I'd like to call the meeting back to order here. I'm going to defer for a few minutes here. Mr. Hollenbach wants to have the floor for an announcement on the numbers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to report, and for purposes of the record, I wanted to inform the commission that with regard to the two weighted votes that were taken, the outcome of those votes would have been the same regardless of which census figures we used. And indeed, the outcome would have been the same if we had used the conventional voting system as well. As you'll recall, on Resolution 1326, the vote was 76.97 in favor and 20.43 in opposition. There were 30 votes cast in favor of the resolution, remembering we need 27 votes to take action, and there were 9 votes against the resolution. If the 2010 census figures had been used, the vote would have been 76.14 in favor and 20.5 in opposition. With regard to Resolution 1327, the vote was 76.22 in favor and 20.33 in opposition. That represented 29 affirmative votes and 8 negative votes. Again, it would have passed under the conventional system. If the 2010 census figures had been utilized, the outcome would have been 75.51 in favor and 20.35 in opposition. I guess my point is that regardless of which voting mechanism we would have chosen this morning, the outcome would have been the same.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, if I could clarification because prior
Please.
to voting, a staff member stated that the no votes would count, an abstention would count as a no vote, and anyone absent would count as a no vote. Was that incorrect, or were those absent votes counted?
I can address that, and it's actually the way the spreadsheet had read. Those that were
Can you use the microphone?
closer. The way the spreadsheet is set up, the nay votes were reflected on that other column. It's true in practical terms because you need that affirmative side to get past 50.1 or 27 if it is straight. To get past 50.1, that's the important part. So in stating that in practical terms, an absence or abstention counts as a nay, it's because you wouldn't be able to get to that 50.1%. But the way the spreadsheet is set up, it's only reflecting the specific nay votes, if that makes sense. It's a practicality of the abstention versus what's the actual vote.
So the absent votes were not counted in
It has the effect of being a no, but not recorded as one.
Correct.
And the reason for that is the statute says on the weighted vote, you have to have more than 50. And we have a total of 100. So if you didn't vote, it effectively meant it went into the column of not being part of the 50.
Well, I don't believe it would have made a difference. I just
Right.
wanted clarification if those were
Thank
counted.
you. That's it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We'll resume the meeting now with the Legislative Committee, Mayor Tom McDermott, Chair.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Seems we lost a lot of our crowd. We had a legislative committee meeting on October 18, 2013. We have the agenda from that meeting attached. We have the minutes from that meeting attached. And I want to thank all the members who showed up for that meeting. It was a very well-attended meeting with a lot of discussion back and forth. And I think we did a lot of good work. We have 3 resolutions pending before the board for authorization. Resolution 1329 is the reauthorization of the Regional Development Authority. Resolution 13-30 is the resolution regarding the expansion of the South Shore Line. Resolution 13-31 is to form a task group, an emergency task group to study the realignment of the NICD board. The chairman should have to take these one at a time.
That would be probably appropriate.
Okay, resolution 1329 is a resolution of the Northwestern Indiana Regional Planning Commission in support of the reauthorization of the Regional Development Authority. As everybody knows, the RDA, when authorized, was authorized for a 10-year term, was funded with $100 million in major moves money. That charter is set to expire in 2015. Under this resolution, the commission would, this asks the commission would please support the reauthorization of the RDA in at least its current form, with at least its current levels of support, with at least its current participants. We chose that language very carefully in that meeting, leaving open the possibility that maybe under the new life of the RDA, if it is reapproved, that maybe the court would want to join, and this being a commission that also represents the court, we left open that possibility. And we also worded it carefully so that if the state changed the terms of our original agreement, like they didn't want to fund the RDA, like they did in the original charter, that we would be able to basically change our stance on that as well. So I'm asking for the commission to approve resolution 1329, Mr. Chairman.
That's a formal motion.
Second.
Second, any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, just, sorry, go ahead, Ken.
Originally, the agreement was that $3.5 million came from East Chicago, Gary, Hammond, Lake County, and Porter County, totaling about $17.5 million annually. And up to $10 million from the toll road proceeds. Have we addressed how the funding's going to occur in this 10-year cycle or?
Thank you, great question. That's why we were sort of vague. We drafted the language intentionally vague so that if the terms of the agreement changed, I mean, like the state said, we don't. What's going on there?
I think it's this one.
Is it my fault?
Yeah.
If the terms of the agreement changed, we drafted it intentionally so that the terms of the agreement changed, that we would revisit this issue. We assumed that the terms would stay basically the same, that if the court came in, they would bring in similar amounts of money, and that the state would bring forward similar amounts of money, and the participants would remain the same, and under those conditions, we felt as a legislative committee that we could support reauthorization of the regional development authority. Did I answer your question?
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank Tom for his excellent leadership as chairman of this committee, and we had quite a lot of talk about this. I just want to come out. The RDA has done so much for our community, and here's the reason why. First is the Planning Commission, and of course it's involved in funding too. You need planning, and planning is great, planning is important, but you need execution, and the RDA is the execution arm of this. It is the entity that helps, again, draw us together, helps us talk about those issues that can only be successful if we do it regionally, and that is so important. For certain things, particularly transportation, economic development, we can only be successful as an entire region if we act regionally, and that's what the RDA is all about. And they've done a fantastic job, and we need to support them. Hopefully we'll get the same type of funding that we've had all along and continue to great projects. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I just want to thank the RDA for the work they've done. Just several weeks ago, the RDA granted a challenge grant to the town council to extend some sewer lines up north of town to where there's going to be the development of a new park that the county is funding. So that is going to free up about a half mile worth of industrial or commercial or residential, whatever kind of development we can get running up there. So I just want to take the time to publicly thank the folks from the RDA for getting that done for the town council.
Mr. Chairman. I would also like to take this opportunity to add my thanks and support for the RDA. They have been a tremendous partner with the Gary Chicago International Airport. They've also been extremely supportive of our efforts as it relates to Marquette Park and funding that redevelopment venture. And most recently, they have added a hand in our efforts to tear down the Sheraton Hotel. And I'm pleased to say that that work will begin in January. And so I am wholly in support of this resolution and the continuation of the RDA.
Salary.
I too want to thank the RDA for the work that it's done, but it's only begun. We've talked about regionalism today. We need to regrow our middle class in North County. We need a regional entity with a funding source that can put seed money and leverage federal money to help us do the things we need to do. We need transit-oriented development, work in urban renewal throughout the country, but we can't do it as any one community. We have to do it in entities that can work for all of us and put resources together for all of us. I hear frequently in my current employment in Indianapolis that we in Northwest Indiana can never agree to anything. I think the RDA has been an example of how we can agree and how we can move the ball forward. And passing this motion is just one more voice that we can agree together and we can work together to grow our community and be competitive in the world market.
Any other discussion on this motion? Hearing none. All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Against? You guys have it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next resolution, first off, I want to thank Mary Thorne, who put this package together and keeps the legislative committee coming. I could not do it without her, so thank you very much, Mary. I wanted to put that out. I forgot to put that initially. Resolution 13-30, a resolution of York City in support of increased investment in commuter rail connecting Chicago to Northwest Indiana and the expansion of the West Lake Corridor. As everybody knows, Congressman Visconski is pushing real hard right now on the local match and providing funding for the increase for the expansion of the South Shore service from Hammond down to Dyer. This is a hot topic right now, so we decided to take it up at the last legislative committee meeting, and we really worded this carefully to talk about not just the West Lake Corridor, but also increased investment in commuter rail. We thought that in general, including the Amtrak issue that was going at the time. So this is worded very carefully, just not to only show that we support the West Lake Corridor expansion, but we support increased investment in rail traffic as well. So I'd ask the committee to approve resolution 13-30.
Give a second. Any discussion on this initiative?
Mr. Chairman, at this time, I'm going to have a conflict of interest because Nikki is my employer, so I will be abstaining from this vote.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by an aye.
Aye.
Against?
Abstain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last resolution we talked about is Resolution 13-31, a resolution of Northwest Indiana Planning Commission in support of the development of a NERC task force to analyze the composition of the NICD board. As a reminder, in last year's session of the General Assembly, Representative Mark Candelario Reardon floated a bill that changed the composition of the NICD board. That bill was sent to summer study. I believe, Representative Soliday, is that true?
Yes, that is.
Thank you, Representative. The bill was sent to summer study, and it was brought up to us in our legislative committee meeting, and there was strong feelings on both sides of the issue, and we felt at that time that it was too complicated of an issue to take out to the legislative committee meeting and bring forward to you all without a task force that could look into every issue. Because obviously NICD feels very strongly that things should remain the same. Some representatives of county government felt things should remain the same. And I know some mayors felt differently as well. So we felt that this was too controversial of an issue to just give the full board a simple resolution. So we're asking the chairman to put together a task force in regards to this issue so we can explore it more in depth.
In meeting with the legislative committee and in conversations with Mayor McDermott, a point I made earlier, NERC is a Northern Indiana asset. Excellent asset, great asset, brings a great deal of money from the Chicago economy in Northwest Indiana. I have committed as chairman of the Transportation Committee, which is different than here, to Mayor McDermott, that if this motion passes, I will not entertain any bills that modify the board membership on NICD until we have a recommendation from NERC. And I have his commitment and that of Mr. Warner that if this passes, they will work closely with St. Joe County also, and MACOG, who is our counterparts over there. I would rather not have 150 people vote on an issue that is really our issue. So I don't know if that's helpful, but
it is. Mr. Chairman, first I want to recognize Representative Soliday for providing a lot of guidance on this and expertise, and thank him very much for working with us on this. And I'm asking on behalf of the motion for the full board to approve resolution 13-31, so Chairman Dave Grant put together a task force to study this issue.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, at this time, I will have to have a conflict of interest on this because Nikki is my employer, so I will be abstaining from this vote.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor with an aye?
Aye.
Against?
Abstain.
One abstention. Motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, that's all I have, and I'll be in touch with everybody in regards to the next meeting. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next up is the Northwest Indiana Economic Development District. Elizabeth Allen, Jr., Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know this has been a long meeting, so I'll be brief. The Northwest Indiana Economic Development District, we have continued to maintain the sales. There hasn't been an awful lot of activity because of the apprehension that the Economic Development Administration has as far as Congress is concerned. But we have done some housekeeping as required by the Economic Development Administration. We have prepared and distributed the resolution to the commissioners of the 3 counties involved. And I know for the Lake County commissioners, we will be acting on the resolution on the 18th of December. And hopefully the other commissioners for the other counties will act on the resolution during the month of December. And we can get that information back to the Economic Development Administration in Chicago as required. Other than that, there's nothing to report at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we'll turn it over to INDOT, Roger Alderman, Board District Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would be a fool to say very much, considering everything that went down in the day. I think I've said more than enough, and just wanted to tell you all that I so much appreciate your commitment to your vision and understanding what that vision was and casting the vote today. I continue to have great faith in this process and the people here. I appreciate the opportunity to be a part of it tonight. For the 23 months that I've been here, this is one of the organizations, or the organization that I most enjoy coming to give me a greater view of the region, and I appreciate that so much. But at the risk of closing down the Bob and Tom show for today, I think that probably I will just tell you all Merry Christmas, God bless you, and we'll find some new challenges in dealing with this.
Thank you.
There's no modification time.
Other business, anything that needs to come up, commissioners?
I would just like to say just what he said, Merry Christmas and God bless. And have a safe, Merry Christmas and God bless, and have a safe holiday. Thank you.
I do have one thing I'd like to see if I get some support from the commissioners here. The DNR is looking to add people to their state staff on trails, and people that are experts in the trails, and bicycle paths, and things of that nature. And I had an opportunity to write a letter on behalf of Mitch Marlowe to be appointed to that position at the state level, and employ all of you that's had an opportunity to work with Mitch in your own backyards, on the trails or bike trails. That's made amenities very good in your communities. To do the same, a letter of support to Mitch, to the DNR, add into the state board, looking for 5 positions that are open for next year. And I think having Mitch on that board would represent not only this body, but represent that board very well, because he's very passionate about trails, bikes, and head and pedal. And Mr. Sullivan, you can help carry those boards. So I do want to make a motion that NERC write one specifically, and hopefully you'll do the same for your own community. But this one's specifically for NERC only.
Mr. Chair.
We have a second discussion.
No, I'm just going to make the motion. I'm sorry.
So if you want to make the motion, go ahead and make the motion.
I'm moving it that way.
I'm entertaining a motion. I'm still entertaining a motion. You want to take?
I thought I made it. I think.
I'm not sure if you did.
I am making that motion without doubt.
It's been a long morning.
Yeah. You didn't have a microphone over there.
As the RDA, I had made a comment regarding that I didn't feel that the city of Gary had gotten good value from the money spent in our city. I was corrected by the chairman of the committee saying, called the comment silly, saying we'd gotten a lot more money than we put in. And I don't feel that I'm being corrected, because I certainly know that we got a lot more money than we put in. However, we did not get very good value for the RDA. If the members of the committee had read some of our great daily newspapers recently, you would find that that the RDA had been double billed by the airport, one of the major projects that they funded. So completely disengaged from the entire process, the airport authority had double billed them $10 million. Now, I think it's a responsibility of the RDA, and I think it's some responsibility of the board, before you reauthorize it, make sure that we're getting good accounting. One of their responsibilities is to make sure not only that the money is spent well, but that the money isn't just being double billed. We read about the Marquette Park, $28 million invested there. It's still inaccessible. Members of our community complain that there's no maintenance at the park. that the price had gone up for all of the rentals there, and it's inaccessible to the residents of our city. That's not a good value. I think the mayor mentioned that they're kicking in $200,000 for demolishing the Sheraton. We've already wasted $750,000 removing the asbestos. Now it's going to be another $1.75 million to tear down. We appreciated $200,000 to tear down that eyesore. But remember that the city of Gary built the building. So now a few years later, we're tearing it down. I don't think we got good value from the money invested in the RDA. I don't like the idea that they're so disconnected from their responsibilities that they can be double billed for $10 million. Of course we love the RDA in our city. We're taking advantage of it for $10 million. And now we've got an airport that's years behind. There's not even I don't even think there's a chance that it's going to be finished. We don't have any agreements with the railroad. That was one of their responsibilities. So all in all, I'm glad that you all see great value from the RDA, but as a resident of the city of Gary, not a politician at the city of Gary, but as a resident of the city of Gary, I am very disappointed with how the money's been wasted in our city, and I wish that the commission would reconsider their vote. Thank you.
Anybody else for public comment? Yes, sir.
And my number is sir. Microphone.
My name is William Hathaway. I live in rural Lowell, and I just wanted to make a couple of comments about the process that was used for moving the Iliana project forward. First of all, I want to thank Mayor Freeman Wilson. I thought you had an excellent presentation, and I really respect the decision process that you used, although I am disappointed with the way that you voted. I thought that you did exactly what was right. My objections to the Iliana are not the roadway itself per se, but some of the things that INDOT used to sell it. Throughout the history of this project, the numbers that are being published, the projected benefits, have been constantly changing. The numbers that appeared on the slide today for projected employment numbers seem to me to be significantly different than numbers that were published just a few weeks ago or discussed a few weeks ago in newspaper interviews with some INDOT officials. And so I'm very concerned that through the entire process, INDOT's story has changed, in some places changed significantly. Specifically with NERC, when we were listening to the presentation on the CMP at the Transportation Committee meeting a few weeks ago, the numbers that they presented in their analysis were significantly different than even INDOT's numbers as far as utilization of the roadway. It seemed to me as I listened to the comments that part of the problem with the Regional Plan Implementation Committee coming to a decision was the fact that the different models we used, many of the models, especially NERC's model, appear to be outdated, not using the most recent data in the analysis. And so I would urge NERC, even if it requires the expenditure of a little money, to spend that on making sure that the econometric models that are used going forward are the best possible models that the committees can use, that the staff can use for that. I do think that NERC did a good job in planning public meetings, but I think that the format of the public meetings was a little bit lacking. It is important, I think, that people have the opportunity to sit down and discuss face-to-face with staff members and committee members who are making the decisions, who are going through the analysis to discuss that. And the formats of the meetings didn't seem to provide that to any significant extent. And so I would ask, as you go forward with other large projects where you solicit public input, that you make some possibility of these face-to-face discussions. And finally, I'd just like to remind everybody that to have a healthy community, to have a healthy region, it is not necessary to constantly grow. The population increase is not necessarily a sign of a healthy community. And that you can have communities that are stable in their population and yet meet very well the needs of their constituents. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the gentleman from Lowell makes a good point, and maybe Mr. Warner at a future meeting can expand on this. The reason we have disagreement in studies is the federal government mandates that the state use a market-based study. And market-based studies look at the past and project trends based on what people have done. That's the law, and we have to do that. Good planning organizations say, what do we want the future to look like? 2040 plan says we want to grow North County. We want to, quite frankly, we'd be happy to keep what we've got in North County. So it is a statement of vision where a state plan is going to be a statement of trend. Now, we can't grow North County unless we do something different than what we're currently doing. So both plans are valid. But if we're going to grow our county, or we're going to grow Lake County, we're going to grow the north area. That's what we want to grow. Young people want to be in urban areas. We're going to do that. We've got to do something different than what we've already done. And that's the important part of a plan. It says, this is what we want to be. Now, what do we have to do to get there? And I hope that's helpful, because they're two very different inputs into the model. And Mr. Warner, I'd be happy to be corrected if I'm wrong.
This was a huge issue, of course, all the way through this process of that distinction, and I think we were able to navigate that successfully with INDOT to address the differences in those philosophies of how that is. This commission has made a clear policy statement of how it wants the future to go, and that's exactly as Mr. already said, the basis of the forecasts that are used in our planning efforts. It got a little tricky, honestly, back and forth, trying to work both of those forecasts, but I think we were able to navigate that and show the difference between market-based versus what this commission adopted as its future desires.
I would also, Mr. Hathaway, I thank you for your emails that you sent me. And I would also like to indicate that in the 2000 census, the state of Indiana lost population. We had 10 United States congressmen. We lost one because we lost population. So we weren't growing in the state of Indiana. In 2010, we stayed the same. We didn't lose any, so that was a good sign, because it's good to have representation up in DC. So we need to grow, but do it in a good planned manner.
Any other public comment? Once, twice, we'll close the public comment section and bring in any announcements. No announcements? All right, we'll have a report of the Executive Director, Ty Warner.
Thank you, Mayor Duran. First of all, I just want to thank, as always, this commission for staying at the table during a very challenging process and challenging project. So thank you for all your work and all the hours that I know have been spent poring over the myriad amount of material that you have received on the issue that was here today. And I also want to make sure I publicly thank staff who worked on this project and the staff report. That was a huge all-hands-on-deck effort. Thanks, Mitch, for shepherding that document together, for all the extra time that went into pulling that together so you had information to be able to respond to. Very, very important. We made some comments in that staff report about uncertainties, as I mentioned at the beginning of this meeting, and recommendations there. We are committed, whether this project goes forward or not. It's not a done deal, as has been said, but if it does go forward, we are committed as staff and as an agency to work with those communities that will be impacted to help to make the impacts that we have talked about in that report as minimal as possible, and the benefits to be derived as maximum as possible. So we have that commitment. That commitment was also shown through the release of the livable centers and an application process, with that process up and running. And that also is related to transit-oriented development, which has come up several times today in the discussion. Christine Sid from Lake County had pointed out, as also being on the NICD board, that NICD had adopted a resolution regarding transit-oriented development. I'll make sure that you all get that. I brought a copy here today for that reason, and then saw there was one on my place, so I guess great minds think alike for today. I'll make sure you have a copy of that for future discussions. Finally, I just want to thank Mayor Uran. He's not really off the hook yet. He doesn't pass the gavel technically until January, but it's been a pleasure to serve with him, and I've appreciated his perseverance and his commitment during this process. So enjoy it. And with that, I just want to wish you all a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.
With that, I appreciate those comments. Thank you. It's been a pleasure to work with all our commissioners here. It's been a very interesting year, to say the least. And I've relied on a lot of people's experience, expertise, and I think at the end of the year of 2013, and we plan for 2014, the region in a whole will be stronger and better than it was when we received it. So I appreciate everybody's efforts on that as well. With that, I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and I look forward to the next chairman passing this gavel in January, and looking forward with the committee. Again, remind everybody, if you want to be interested in involved in the executive board, please contact our executive director, Ty Warner, with that request. With that, does anyone want to take the task on a motion to adjourn? Do we have a second? Second. Do we go ahead and vote?